Okay, we're live streaming.
Okay, I'll start the webinar. Everyone ready?
Yes.
All right.
Are we on?
Yes.
Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Okay. All right. Welcome to the December 2022 meeting of the Clifton Town Council. Coming on by Zoom as discussed in the agenda in accordance with the various declarations that we have made and the agenda that's distributed and opportunities for people to participate. We'll get right into the agenda, starting with the report of the town clerk. But before we go there, the treasurer has a health issue tonight and will not be joining us. Anyway, Amanda, go ahead.
All right, so the November draft meeting minutes were circulated and I received some basic revisions from the mayor to make it read smoother. And
Okay,
that's it.
anything else? All right.
For the minutes, that's it.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with those minor revisions.
Second.
So motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, next.
I just wanted to let everybody know that the golf cart registrations are just about due for 2023. They're due hopefully before January 1st. The decals are going to be blue this year and they'll say 23 on them prominently. The announcement's gone out to all the golf cart owners from the previous couple of years and a couple of new people. And I've already received quite a few, maybe 50% of the registration so far. But once January comes around, if you do see someone who has a decal on their golf cart license plate that's not blue, please do kindly remind them to contact me and we can get them registered.
Will do.
For the 8-acre park native tree planting, this is kind of a follow-up to the improvements that were done recently. Back at the end of the summer, some of the native or the invasive vegetation was cleared out of the middle of the easement, and the berm, you remember, was reshaped. After the haunted trail was done, and I'd recovered a little bit, I put in a request to Fairfax Relief, which is a nonprofit organization that is affiliated with Fairfax County. They distribute free native seedlings all over the county. So we received, on behalf of the town of Clifton, 4 river birch and 2 pawpaws. So those have been planted at the entrance of 8-acre park. If you go down there, or if you haven't been down there in the past month, basically if you're facing the footbridge that enters the park, to the left-hand side, sort of along the river bank, you'll see some, I tried to make them as attractive as possible, but they're cages that will keep the deer from browsing on the saplings. And just as a point of interest, before I did this, I went and I met with a person who has lived just outside the town for, I think she said 47 years. Her name's Pat Miracle. I spent probably 3 hours with Pat looking at her garden, and she took me through some of the trail on the floodplain side of things, where she has done some planting, and I really wanted to get some expertise from her on what are the best cages to construct. So she showed me how to make the best deer cages. And she was just a delightful person to talk to. And the one thing that I haven't done yet, which she did in the floodplain park, which I found really great, was for the things that she planted, which definitely included pawpaw. She had these little cards that she typed up with information, the botanical name and some of the ecological benefits of the plants and just what she was trying to accomplish. And then she had it laminated and attached to the cages. So it's sort of a community education project. And she's just been obviously been a steward of that part of the trail for many years. So that's the one thing that I haven't done yet. But so if you see the little cages at 8 Acre Park, that's what that is, 4 river birches and 2 pawpaws.
Great. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Everybody that walked by was curious about what we were planting. And
Amanda, you did some great work because I thought that was the work of Pat. So so great job just getting the trees in there and just protecting that riverbank, especially with all
Thank
those
you.
trees that have come down recently.
it was definitely inspired by Pat.
Excellent.
And that's the
Okay.
end of the clerk's report.
Thanks. And the treasurer is out, so there won't be a report there. Move to citizens' remarks. There are 2. The second involves the Clifton Railway Trail proposal, but I'm going to start with the first. The first is I've been contacted by the Fairfax County Election Board, who has gotten back to me, and you may recall that they broke Clifton up into 3 precincts instead of 1 precinct: Clifton North, Clifton Town, Clifton South. And Clifton North, they shuttled off to, I don't know where, Liberty Middle School or something. Clifton South voted at Presbyterian Church, and Clifton Town voted at Presbyterian Church. And they want us to say that we want to move to the town hall and be our own separate, group. Our precinct has like 85 voters or something. Anyway, she got back to me and she was looking for feedback on how people felt about the voting that we had in November. Were people confused? People from Clifton Town precinct, were they confused about going to the Presbyterian Church? Was it a problem? And would we prefer to have ourselves moved to be at the town hall instead of being at the Presbyterian Church? So that's the question. Is there any feedback from people, anybody that voted?
We voted and it was incredibly simple and an easy process. They did have, I saw how they had the 2 separate districts set up in there. So I could see how potentially, if they didn't have well-trained staff that were very cordial and polite and very clear in communicating where to go and what to do, maybe somebody could get confused. But for us, it was no problem at all. I voted inside and Alexia voted car side.
Okay.
Yeah, I voted inside too with Lucia. And was it confusing? It was only confusing because they split us up into 3 different districts. If you want to stop the confusion, you stop the splitting up of the districts. I think it would be a mistake to move where we vote. We've all voted in that location for many years. And if you want to create confusion, the way you do it would be to change where we vote. It also would create a problem because they're having a lot of trouble finding enough people to man voting locations. And this would put 2 voting locations instead of 1 voting location. I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever. Yes, we need a sign that says this is Clifton Center and this is Clifton North or South or whatever the hell it is. But that's no big deal. I would recommend against moving where we vote.
Okay.
I concur. I don't think there's any need to, I don't have any interest in relocating where the town votes.
I agree. Everybody was really well trained, and I think 3 people approached me asking if I was in town or not in town. And there were, if you missed the first person, then the second person certainly caught you, and then there were others to catch you if you still were in the wrong line. So it was very well organized, and I think that staying in the same place and not changing it up is the best idea all around.
Okay,
Yeah, did any of you get the voting location in Fairfax City first? 'Cause we received
Yeah.
voting in, I forgot where in Fairfax City, then they changed it to the Presbyterian, but
yeah, that was a mistake. They sent those out by mistake, and then I don't know what they were doing there.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, to remember everybody else, I mean, it's just kind of weird having our own little voting machine, specific to the town. But yeah, I'd like to keep it at Presbyterian. Does make sense to have the handful of us go to the town hall.
Okay.
Yeah, I was out of town, so I couldn't vote, but I would note that we did vote at town hall 6 or 7 years ago. I'm not sure why that was, but I recall voting in town hall. But I would also say that when we do have town elections, the segregation is more important because there's a different ballot. That wasn't the case this time, but there'll still be the segregation of the districts at the Presbyterian Church.
Right. Yeah, town elections had previously been held at the town hall, but I don't believe like any national or statewide elections have ever been held at the town hall. But I could be wrong. Maybe it predates my time.
Yeah, that may have been town hall. Yeah.
And
I think you're right. The town elections, when there's just a town election, we're at the fire hall. But and you're correct that there would be, when we have our elections at the same time as the national elections, we would have a different ballot, but that would increase the likelihood that we would all be in the right line.
Yeah. It's just more to delineate.
And when you give them your name and they look it up on the computer, they're going to tell you which voting precinct you're in. I don't understand. I don't even see how the confusion could occur. So
it occurs because they had to have different machines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the way they were doing their counts.
Okay.
I don't know that in the future they would even have to do that. I think they can distinguish north and south or whatever, but I still don't think it makes sense to have an entire new group of people and have the entire town told that they can't vote where they've been voting.
Okay, I can report that back. They're really pushing hard to move it. I don't know why. What their agenda is. There's some desire. But I will report this back, that there's a strong feeling from our side that it should remain where it is.
We do have an attendee who has their hand raised. Are you taking input from others?
Sure, assuming it's on this subject of confusion in the polling. Yeah.
Donna, I promoted you to a panelist so that you could speak. You're on mute right now.
Okay. No, I just want to say, as a citizen, I completely agree with not moving it. The manpower thing is the prime concern, getting people. I thought it's why, I don't even understand why we're voting separately inside the church, but I think it's unnecessary to use a different building and add more people. So that's my vote.
Okay, thank you. I'll report that back to the Fairfax election board. Do we think we need to take any formal action, motion or anything like that? Or you think just reporting back is useful? Thoughts? Okay. All right, second citizens remarks were contacted today or yesterday by Mike Davis, who wanted to put on the table the idea of, many people have been talking about this for many years, the idea of a trail going from the 8-acre park down to Hemlock Overlook. And what Mike's looking at doing and what role the town might play. So Mike had sent some information out as well, but thought we'd give Mike an opportunity to put it on the table before the council so people can hear it and ask questions they might have. I doubt we'd be able to take action on it because it's the first time we've heard about it, but let's start with the presentation.
Good evening, Council. My name is Michael Davis, 13155 Compton Road. I am not a town resident, but I am a frequent of all the events there in town. I do appreciate our little community. So I sent Amanda, and a few of you have already seen the proposal for a trail. I'm not sure if most people know this, but out of the back of Hemlock Park, where the steps go up to the old embankment, that embankment actually goes most of the way all the way to Hemlock Park. And then in 2009, the town did adopt a plan to connect the trails in Clifton to the countywide trail network. And this would be one corridor that I would like for the town to put its leverage behind and support as a study to get it going as part of that commitment to the plan, the comprehensive plan of 2009. That's pretty much the main thing. I've done a lot of research on this, got all the details in the proposal. You guys can read it through. The two main sticking points are going to be there is about 200 feet of property that is owned by Bob Thornton and his wife just before you get to Hemlock Park. There's a creek crossing that to get into Hemlock Park, and then there's also a narrow section between the creek and the railroad tracks that would need to be somehow worked through with work through how to get through that. But to start with, we just need to get it cleared out and see how much, how easy it would be to clear out the invasive species and then see what we can go from there. But that's my 3 minutes. Any questions?
Yeah, can you just clarify for me, when you're saying Hemlock Park, are you talking about the 8-acre park?
Yeah,
park?
so this would be a connecting trail between the back of Hemlock. The front of Hemlock, the easternmost side of Hemlock, and the westernmost side of 8-acre park. So 8-acre park is owned by the town, and so it would be connected there via the railroad corridor that Norfolk and Southern owns, all the way almost to Hemlock Park, 200 feet shy of Hemlock Park.
And how far is that?
It's only a half a mile. So the distance,
Half a mile. Okay.
Yeah,
But who owns that half a mile? That's the
Norfolk
railroad?
and Southern.
And has Norfolk Southern said that they're willing to have somebody use their right of way?
I have not approached it. My first task on the list was to approach the town to see if they were interested in supporting that. The town does have a representative who does coordinate with Norfolk and Southern because the town uses other property of theirs. So it'd be nice if the town could lead that maybe.
I mean, I don't know that we can do this now, and I have not seen the proposal, but I have to tell you, I don't think that Norfolk Southern has the legal ability to assume liability for their rights of way in that way. And if the answer to that is no, then all the rest of this can't work. Because
Correct.
you've got a half mile of connection that we don't control and Hemlock doesn't control. And the railroad has a right of way, but I don't think they can, I'm not sure, but it sounds to me
not-
like there'd be a real problem. The first people you'd have to talk to are Hemlock, are the railroad. Because if the railroad says, no, we can't do this, then the rest of this is spending a lot of time.
My read on it, Steve, is there are two things that need to be done to get from 8 Acre Park to Hemlock Overlook Park. One is Norfolk Southern, and the other one is 200 feet on a private property owner's property. And if either one of them says no, then you don't have a contiguous path. But
That's right.
it's Norfolk Southern's property, and the analogy or the concept would be we currently lease the railroad siding from Norfolk Southern. So they have a willingness, by the way, this is important for Michael. Norfolk Southern has a willingness to lease their property on the side of the railroad to governments, not to individuals. And we know this because Sheldon surprisingly approached Norfolk Southern and asked to get the property instead of the town. And Norfolk Southern, where the parking lot is, and Norfolk Southern said no, because we don't do that. We don't do it to private individuals, blah, 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 businesses, etc. But for governmental entities, they have and they will, and we have a lease and it's a form, and they renewed it 10 years ago or something, brought it up to their latest version. So at least there's a possibility. I don't disagree with you that if you have people unmonitored wandering around near the railroad tracks, that might be a showstopper, but it might not. And the idea, I think, would be something like a 10-foot wide path, walking path, that would run through those properties. So we sure in the heck wouldn't lease all the properties because they charge you by the square foot or something. A 10-foot wide
And
path.
Bill, didn't they also require that we put a fence up?
Yes, and here's the thing: if when you look at the plan, which I think was sent out today, okay, so it's not like you've had a chance to look at it, but when you look at it, in a lot of places, that walking trail would be 200 yards from the track, so I don't think they need a fence there.
Okay.
But there are many other places where it's right up against where the rocks are, just like where we are, where it I'm sure would require some sort of fence. So that's assuming they would do it at all. You would certainly have some fence issues. There are also issues where basically you come down off the rocks and the creek is there, so you'd have to build some kind of bridge or fill in the creek. So there's a number of issues. But I agree with you, if Norfolk Southern said, no, we're not willing to do that, it doesn't go anywhere. But I think the only from here to there would be the town doing it. I don't think a private group can do it. So, and I don't know the answer, but at least there's a precedent with the parking lot to the town.
And then the trails in 8 Acre Park, or actually the raised trail bed, is on the right of way as well. I'm not sure if we have a permission to use that or not, but that one raised trail bed is on the right of way.
That's something we don't talk about a whole lot.
Okay.
Yeah. The survey we had done recently instructed us that yes, much of that is Norfolk Southern property. And frankly, I wouldn't open that issue up now either. This would be more about from the end of the 8 Acre Park to the Thornton property. Can we get a 10-foot walking path? Because having people walk is great. We'll put up a fence where needed. It would be like the parking lot, and it would use the same form, and we've already negotiated blah, blah, blah. And if they come back and go, no way, then whatever, we're done. if they say we would consider that, then at least you can think about it. The second part is the 200 feet on the Thornton property. Have they been talked to, or are they supported?
I have submitted my proposal that I submitted to the council. I have sent it to them. I have not gotten a response back from them, but I did send it to them, registered mail. So at least I know they got it.
So you sent registered mail to them? Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily going to encourage them to participate, but at least they'll know about it. The idea there would be that would be a straight easement to the town. And again, it would be something like a 10-foot wide easement. We would agree to put a fence up on both sides if they wanted, like a split rail fence. And we would acquire the easement from them. That would have to be surveyed and everything else. On the railroad, I would just say 10 feet someplace.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Thorntons, you'd have to do the whole thing with the survey and all that. If they would like to do so. That's something we'd also need to find out. And I think the town would be the proper easement holder.
Northern Virginia, NVR, Northern Virginia Conservation Trust.
NVCT.
Yeah, they've also, they're a Fairfax County type organization that does the same thing. They're the ones who hold the footpath from the CBA in the floodplain.
That's actually okay. All right.
Well,
okay.
I think this is just a fabulous idea. As a runner, somebody with young kids, we go to Hemlock all the time, and when we're feeling bold, my husband and I might run on the road Yates Ford back home, and it's so dangerous. We shouldn't be doing it. And just to be able to access that just 19-mile trail system, to be able to do it from town is just an incredible benefit. I know when I'm out here, just sort of making it work on the roads and trails just in town, there's a limit of how far you can go without getting it to the car. And I see all my other fellow runners out there and walkers just sort of doing these same loops over and over. So it would be just an incredible benefit to us, as a family. And I know a lot of other individuals who would benefit from having a safe place to connect and to access those trails. Something that has been done around the country in different places are these projects of rails to trails. That's when the railroad is no longer in use and they turn that into a trail. But there's also an organization called Rails and Trails where they use the clearing and the space in the right of way to actually take advantage of that space for both the trails and the train. So that might be something to look into, just to get a little bit more information to present to Norfolk Southern, and see what was compelling enough for some of the other railways to actually open that up in terms of any safety issues that might come up.
So you're saying that before approaching Norfolk Southern, you would encourage putting some information together like this so that when Norfolk Southern's approached, you could put your best foot forward on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, I do think it's a great project. If all parties can agree on it, then that it'll bring an incredible resource closer to town.
There's another part of this, which is if Norfolk Southern generally doesn't give their use of their property away, they have a clear policy of charging. So, I could see a charge of $5,000 a year or something to the town, plus the Thornton easement. I don't know what that would require, plus the filling in of the creek, which I know that would raise a lot of environmental issues that would have to be addressed, or the building of some sort of engineered structure going over the creek like a bridge, plus fencing. Point being, I think for somebody, there's going to be a significant financial outlay, $50,000 to $100,000, plus the $5,000 a year. So it's not like our floodplain park where, you know, we had sort of a walking trail and Rick put down some gravel and stuff. I've walked this, and there are some significant engineering challenges, all doable if Norfolk Southern and the Thorntons agree, you know, including the crossing of Pope's Head Creek, all doable, but there will be costs involved. Any idea who would be paying for all of that?
Hey, Mike, I know that Mike cited the Virginia trails. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I did reach out to that state organization a few years ago just to inquire. First of all, they were elated that somebody reached out to them, but they do grants for trails, and there's certain metrics about, you know, potential users, et cetera, et cetera. But they have $100,000 minimum grant. So that, you know, that is potentially a great avenue.
Okay.
To pursue.
And Reagan, do I have that in my coordination list of the tasks at the bottom?
I think you referenced that organization. I don't have it in front of me.
Virginia Recreational Trails Program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I do have that in my tasks as coordinate with the northern that organization. So
they have a grant program that comes around every 2 years. You know, you have to have property agreements in place and or, you know, easements, et cetera. But it's, you know, it's a fairly decent size resource.
Okay.
The one thing we know we could do is assure them that we could figure out how to spend $100,000.
Yes. I think if we had the property rights here, we could probably figure out how to find the 100,000 to do it. But the property rights, that's the gating issue here.
does anyone on this meeting know the Thorntons that might be able to get an in? I don't know. Guess not. And by the way, the 200 feet is right next to the railroad tracks there, and it is not visible from their home. At least the last time I was there. So it's so far away from their home that it's not visible from their home site.
Okay. All right. Well, other questions from the council at this time? I wanted to make sure that Michael had an opportunity to present this to the council, and I know some people have heard about it, some people have not. Michael's put together quite an extensive and elaborate presentation and write-up, so lots of information to look at here. People want to look at this and talk about it again at the next meeting, now that you're aware of it. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, I am going to turn now to the Eagle Scout project proposal if Evan is on. Do you know? Because I'd just like Evan to go ahead and be able to do his pitch here. Is he on? Do you know? I guess
Evan has been promoted to panelist.
Okay, so we're contacted about an Eagle Scout project. As all of you know, we've done many Eagle Scout projects in the past. Evan's put together a proposed project, which I told him would need to be presented to the council, and the council would need to agree to allow it to be done and to authorize it. So Evan's on and will speak about the proposal.
Hello. Record. Share screen. Here we go. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Evan Lawrence. I'm a member of Boy Scout Troop 1104, and we meet at Clifton Presbyterian Church. I'm proposing a Yule project to renovate Clifton Town Park. Oh. There we go. My plan is to improve Clifton Town Park by refurbishing the outer rim of the playground, this wood piece, and painting the wood underneath the deck boards with a sealant to protect from water damage. As you can tell in this picture, there's a lot of water damage. The train looks really good, but the paint on top is starting to flake, and I propose to paint the top of the train with black paint. I also power wash the playground equipment, especially focusing on the horses because they are very dirty. I plan to run the project in the spring. We will put out signs saying there will be maintenance about a week in advance. I propose to use the existing deck boards by removing, cleaning, and replacing them. At the same time, we will paint the wood underneath with sealant and then reattach the boards with new composite deck screws. I investigated replacing the boards with composite deck boards. The cost is $2.66 per foot, and to cover a 450-foot border is about $1,200. We will replace the top boards if the council chooses to fund this option. Otherwise, we will use the existing boards. The project will require composite deck boards, screws, and sealant for the outer edge of the playground. We will use pressure washers provided by the troop to clean the equipment. Lastly, I have a problem providing water to my pressure washers, so I hope there's someone very near the park generous enough to allow me to connect a hose to their water supply. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you, Ms. Stein, for giving me the project ideas at the Clifton Haunted Trail cleanup. And thank you, Mr. Holloway, for the project recommendations and helping me schedule this presentation at the council meeting. If you agree to move forward with the project, I request that a town representative act as the project sponsor. Thank you for your time.
All right. Questions from the council?
Did that stop it?
Do we think it needs the new deck boards, Evan? What's your opinion on that?
So I don't know if we need to get new ones. That seems maybe too much, but I do think trying to like take them off, fix them, and paint them, that I think should be done, because it is. I had one picture where it was the dirt was getting under it. It was coming up, so they might come up very soon, and then they might need to be replaced fully.
So that they're in good condition. They just need to be reset, reorganized, and
Exactly.
okay. Thanks.
We do have a question from the Parks Committee Chair.
Okay.
Donna, you've been promoted to panelist, so you can speak.
Okay, as the Parks Chair, I'm thrilled. Thank you very much to our Eagle Scout project. I think the top boards are warped. They're a synthetic product. We have screwed them down. We have nailed them down. I would prefer to see new boards started out. They have not been they were not great in the beginning, and they have not held up. But if we're going to try to use them again, I think it'd be almost better to start from scratch, or maybe find a different kind of top board that might not warp. They're always like humped, I mean, they really have been a problem. So I would just like to put that out there as the chairman, because I live on the park. Part of this also originally was replacing the mulch, which I see has been removed from the project. CBA had said they would foot the bill for some of this. So Mulch replacement is always great, and we could also coordinate to do mulch replacement. I'd love to see the scouts clear, like rake with the existing mulch to flatten it all out, all the holes under the swings and things. So if we do blow in new mulch, we need to get the mulch to be as high as the boards around. It's never been the right depth for the safety for all of our inspections, but it is expensive. So if we can add a mulch addition, and in addition, if the park committee can like throw some mulch in there after they renovate, that would be great. New boards, if we can get a price on them, that would be great. And I have had the top of the train painted in the past, but it does need to be like the filler. There needs to be a filler. The kids are up there walking on it, jumping off of it. It's a fiber board. Underneath the paint, there's layers of this fiber board. So the scouts need to be aware it's not just painting. You have to treat the top before you paint it. But I would be thrilled. I'd be happy to be the connection with if you need a town connection or mentor or whatever that word was.
Project sponsor.
I would like to be your project sponsor, and I live right on the park, and you can use my water, no problem.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I've been in park chairs for years. Any help we can get, we welcome, and I will help you all I can.
All right, further thoughts on new boards, council members?
I would
I know Nick,
advocate for repairing what's there.
I know we don't have Nick on,
Replacing.
so I don't know if we can check. Are there funds in the parks budget that would cover the $1,200 to replace the boards?
Or
Or maybe we replace only what's warped as opposed to replacing all of them.
Exactly, Daryl. I would advocate for replacing what needs to be repaired. But if you power wash the top, it's going to look, it's plastic. It's plastic composite boards. It's not going to, new ones aren't going to be any different than what's there, provided that we repair what needs to be repaired. And then the effort, I think, that Don laid out for other areas that could use attention would be better spent.
Okay, so the recommendation is if there are boards that are warped and cannot be reused or otherwise broken and require replacement, replace those boards.
Yeah.
On an individual basis. Does that work, Evan?
Okay, that sounds good. We could work with that. Yeah, we can work on that.
Yeah. The other thing I would like to see happen over there is that in front of Steve Bittner's house, Steve and Kim, there is a fence post that's frequently removed to access the park for Clifton Day and for vehicles to go through there. It would be nice if you guys could take on creating a post hole that the post could go in and come out of multiple times without being dug into the ground, whether that's a PVC pipe or a concrete slot that the post can go in and come out of, so that it's by design it can be removed. Because right now the post is landing on the ground. The hole that was there was just hand dug and it's collapsed, and therefore the post and the rails aren't being used right now. But that would be a big help if you guys could take that on. And I'd be glad to coach you through possible solutions for that.
Yeah, that would probably be happily asked for, but I guess we could try and do something like that.
Yep.
Okay, so this post hole thing. And what about what Donna talked about is effectively fluffing the mulch? You got mulch, it's in there, children fall, it's painful, whatever. Okay, very bad. And they walk around on it a lot and it rains. And now you got like hard as a rock compacted mulch. Theoretically, you get rakes and you rake it up and fluff it. And then you blow some stuff in there too. But what about fluffing the mulch with some rakes where it makes sense? Is that something that you can do?
Yeah, we could get some rakes out and probably try and fluff it up when we do our project. That would be, yeah, I can have that happen.
All right, mulch fluffing, board replacement where broken, Reagan's post hole thing. Donna, project sponsor and water supplier.
Okay.
And
Okay?
Evan, no issues with regard to the treatment on top of the train before painting? You have any concerns about that?
I would have to learn how to do it myself. So yeah, I'd have to talk to someone about how to work that.
I'm sure it's
It-
easy enough to
It
prep the
strikes me
surface.
you
Yeah.
would sand it, you prep it, you would prime it with
Yeah.
some good primer that should seal it, and then you paint it.
Yeah.
It's the concept. It's not magic. Somebody should be good skill to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can try and find that out, investigate it.
Okay?
Evan, thanks so much for considering the park for your project. I think this is just fabulous for our town. I had a question about whenever I see or whenever I find out about Eagle projects, it's because there's a little marker that says this bridge was an Eagle project, or you know, this you know, this construction of something, you know, when we're out on the trails. I'm curious if you have an idea, or if in the plans there's an idea to actually mark the project in any way at the park.
I hadn't thought about it, but I guess we could put it on like the bottom of the fence post or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll add to that, they usually do that, but it's typically hidden. So the idea is it's, you know, an eco project is not meant to be, you know, overt, you know, marketing or any of that. It's meant to be service to the community. So he really should not put a sign outward facing, but usually there's something, you know, scribbled underneath or something like that. But
Okay,
that's why
so
he said, you know, we could put it on the bottom of the fence post or something.
put a sign where people can't see it.
Basically.
And I'll tell you what would be interesting would be, frankly, I don't know if we have it or not, but a list of all the Eagle projects that have been done for the town, because I know there are a number of them. It would just be interesting to see. It doesn't have to laud the individual Eagle, but rather 1104 and the different things that have been done, just so people are mindful of 1104's connection to the community. I think that would be useful at some
The
point.
only one I know about,
We're trying to find it.
one with the council ever done, was one at the haunted trail. Someone made tables there. So that's the only one that went through this council before, from what I know.
We'll attempt to find that information. That's a great idea.
Well, anyway, something to look at some point. All right, so that was very good with the additions we talked about. Donna has her hand up. Do you have another point, Donna, or?
I know that, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. Nate Simpson, who now has of course graduated and has worked, but he used to live next door to me. He did the fire pit at the barn for his, I remember that. And then one Eagle Scout marked our trees in 8 Acre Park and had pamphlets identifying our trees and little markers on each tree. We've had several. I don't have a whole file, but we could do a little research because I know Jimmy Chesley was really big on Eagle Scout projects for the kids. So I will try to see if I can amass some list and put it out on Clifton page and see if anybody can remember. That's a good point. We should acknowledge them.
It's the relationship between 1104 and the community.
Just
that-
1104, not just an Eagle Scout. I don't know.
Sure, if you got others, but it'd be.
Is
primarily-
1104 our troop? Is that the only troop we
Yeah,
have?
it's the one that is around in Clifton. We meet
Okay.
in Clifton
Correct.
Presbyterian
Okay.
Church.
And we have done many. That was Alex Phyllis, wasn't it, who marked the trees, as I recall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
So
available.
they're
I'm
all-
very available for any conferencing with signing off.
Very good. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the Eagle Scout project proposal as presented by Evan Lawrence, and as revised in the discussion herein.
Second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion?
Is there a spending limit we want to put in place? Or are we reimbursing for these costs?
We are reimbursing for these costs unless the CBA does so. And I think the CBA offered to, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
All right,
Okay.
then.
All right, so that would be the CBA. Our contribution would be reviewing and approving it. And the CBA would put the funds forward. That sounds
Okay.
good. We're here as a
I
back.
promoted the CBA treasurer in case he has something to chime in about.
Okay,
I have not been approached to add this as a line item. I know that we have paid for other things in the town park, but typically the town park is paid for by the town itself.
yeah, Mike, this one came from Michelle.
Okay.
Michelle is the one who had them.
It's not unheard of. We
Yeah.
have paid for replacement screws to mount those boards that he's talking about. We have paid for replacement screws for that before.
Yes, just letting you know where the information came from.
Okay.
About it. Okay, so part of my motion will be if the CBA does not fund, then we would the materials. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll do because there's some funding involved. We'll do a roll call vote. Holloway, aye.
McDonald,
Ed Frost, aye.
Poe, aye.
Line I.
Green eye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Evan.
Thanks, Evan.
Donna Netchard's your project sponsor, so. You need anything, let us know.
I don't need anything yet. I'll email you if I do.
Okay, and we're gonna move on in the agenda. First thing I'd like to point out is, I believe, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, there was no planning commission meeting.
That's right. No meeting, no report.
No report, no zoning administrator report, no ARB meeting, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And by the way, Clifton Haunted Trail was left on there inadvertently. There's no need for to make a report, but
Oh, but I made a report.
oh, okay.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, go ahead. It's
Okay. It'll be quick. Let me see. How do I share screen?
There's a green button at the bottom of your main Zoom window.
Oh yeah, there it is. Sorry, it's been a while. Okay, this will be just a quick report here. I put together some of the information from 2022, and you'll see another column that says 2019, which was the last haunted trail that was held. And you'll see that our gross revenue this year was just over 49,000, and our net revenue was 38,500, and our total expenses were 10,000. Definitely some big differences from 2019. So down below, I put just sort of a kind of a bulleted list of some of the more significant changes. We sold less tickets. We had more sponsors. We didn't pay to screen movies. We had a smaller dumpster, but prices overall have increased since COVID. So dumpsters and porta potties are more expensive overall, even if you get smaller or less.
Yep.
We did not have the privilege of sharing parking revenue with the charity because we could not, I think we didn't have enough time to line up any charities to help us man the parking lots. That's something that we hope that we can improve on next year. A big change this year was that we did not offer reimbursement to skit leaders or skit actors this year. And as the mayor pointed out in an earlier conversation, the thinking behind this is that if you have 22 skits and each skit spends a certain amount of money, and then they all want reimbursement. And in some cases, $1,000 of reimbursement that could literally cost us $22,000 to reimburse everyone for their costs. So what we did at the outset of our organization process this year was we encouraged all skit leaders to do things on the cheap. It's not just good for the budget, but it's also good for the earth. Find things from around the house, supplement from the thrift store, be creative, try to not generate a bunch of waste. And for the most part, everyone was really successful with that mission. So I hope that we can continue with that trend. I would say otherwise, we're pretty much in line with a lot of the expenses from the previous year. I'll show you, and I can send this to anyone who's interested in having it and looking at it in more detail on their own time. I did make a second sheet where I just sort of itemize the actual expenses, literally each transaction. Very few expenses this year. And everyone who needed to spend money came in under budget. So and obviously this will come up again in the spring when we're doing the budget work sessions. But you can see here that our expense was almost $11,000. And I would say that that is the absolute bare minimum. And so that when funds are allocated for next year, that we would want to have a cushion above and beyond that.
Account for inflation.
Right, and just unforeseen expenditures. And even though, for example, you can see that in 2019, a fair amount of funds were expended above and beyond what we spent, and we may be benefiting from that this year, but we may not benefit from that every single year. For example, there are certain things that were purchased and they may wear out over time. They just have to be replaced.
Yeah.
So it would be better if we had a report that maybe had 3 years to compare to over time to see, Steve had to go to Home Depot to purchase new cords because cords wear out, they disappear. Who knows exactly what happens? But at the same time, and I wasn't there for this, unfortunately, but Steve was actually really concerned about the consumption of tiki torch fluid. And we use tiki torches to light the trail for safety purposes so people can see where to walk, not to light the skits themselves. But in the weeks leading up to the haunted trail, Steve was actually performing these scientific experiments in his yard where he was filling up tiki torches with fluid and then burning them and timing them to see the rate at which the fluid was burned so that he could forecast exactly how much of the fluid would be needed so that we weren't pouring in more fluid than what would be spent. So when I say that we spent $10,630.05, that was everybody working on all cylinders to be as creative and as frugally as possible.
Phenomenal. There's
And
just
lots
a couple
of creativity.
A couple of things I just want to point out that I'm seeing here. We had a couple of goals when we decided to resurrect the haunted trail. Wanted to make it more community focused. We wanted to contain costs and we wanted to bring the event back for the community. And this lays out exactly that we accomplished those goals. We contained our costs, came in way under budget, what we had projected. We made almost as much money as we did, spending twice as much to pull the event off. And the enthusiasm on the trail and the reactions from the crowds were as great as any other trail I've ever worked on in the past years. I think the community loved it. The folks working on it really had a great time. I think we fired on all cylinders. Great work, Amanda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
I'll tell you, one of the things I really like is the sponsorship. And I know there was some discussion about that. And I look at that sponsorship number and it almost offsets the expenses. So in the event you had some, terrible disaster, like it snowed or rained or hailed or whatever, and you're worried about revenues, you still got that almost full offset because so much work was done on sponsorship. Really, really great work on that. And I see that ticket sales were down because you sold less tickets with intent to make it a less intensive trail.
Mhm.
But by keeping being frugal on expenses, you ended up about the same place. So as Daryl said, Amanda, you achieved all the objectives, you and the team that you'd set out, incredibly successful. And getting this back after 3 years, really phenomenal job.
I
Great.
have, since our last council meeting, I have met with Sydney and we had a debriefing session over at her house where we went through how things went and what could be improved, what should be changed. And I asked her, how did she feel about the number of attendees or the tickets sold, 2,145. And she suggested that she might like it to be bumped up to 2,500 for next year. So I think that's something that we're going to have in mind. It tracks with my own experience as a skit leader on the trail towards the very end. We had some long breaks where we didn't have anybody coming through. So
Okay.
I think there is room for more people. And we know based on social media feedback and many emails from people that we definitely could have sold more tickets. So I think that our goal, 2,500 next year is a very reasonable, good goal.
Yeah, and I think gradually increasing that capacity based on the experience we're having, rather than just open it up and sell as many as we can, as I think we've done in years past and wound up with just way more traffic than we can handle. So I like taking this approach.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know that 2019 is considered the banner year, but it's not the year with the most number of tickets. There were previous years where there were over 3,000 tickets sold. And that definitely was maybe a little bit too much to handle.
Okay. Great report. I'm glad you went through this. This is exactly what we need to see. So this is terrific. And I'm so glad that this is on the agenda and you put that report together.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it was a useful exercise just to divide the expenses up by the main categories, just to see, so one of the items in logistics is the storage. And so that includes a year's worth of storage of offsite of the bulk of the Haunted Trails props and costumes and some of the equipment. We pay every month for that. So this was the first time that we actually used the storage pod. I think that was a decision that was made in
coming
2019.
out of 2019. Coming out of 2019, we made the decision to go to a storage pod versus the dangerous and unmanageable situation of storing everything over in the loft at the barn.
Right. So it worked out really well this time. The original thinking back in 2019 was, hey, let's get all of this stuff. We'll store it off-site. When we're ready, we'll have the pod delivered to the trailhead. That was not an option for us this year because we had less land to work with. So the alternative was to have the pod delivered to the CBA barn. And then everything was unpacked and brought into the barn and sort of staged there. And I don't know that anybody could have foreseen this, but I think it ended up working out much better that way.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to come at the same time. So there were multiple times where Sydney or I were there helping people look through all the stock that was in the barn, picking out what they needed. Some people had to come back multiple times. So it ended up working out really well. And I'm pretty sure after talking to Cindy, that's what we plan to do in the future. And thank you 100,000 times to the CBA for allowing us to take over their space for 2 weeks to almost 3 weeks.
Terrific. Okay, anything else on that incredibly successful event?
That's it.
All right, I would like to quickly run through these event reports that are in section 5, just as a status thing. The first one, the Sully Commander in the Community event. They came by the town hall. Did
Yes.
was anyone able to attend that event?
I was not able to attend, but I did communicate with the coordinator, Officer Megan, can't remember her last name,
Yeah.
just to make sure that they had access to the building and were able to set up. And then exchanged messages with her after, and she said it was a successful event. That's
Good.
the summary that I got. I don't know if anyone else heard.
I mean, I remember they talked about it, and then we didn't hear from them for months. And then by the time it kind of came and went,
Yeah, I don't know how well it was communicated to the broader community, but
Yeah.
I you know, it was
So
something they wanted to do. Presumably they put the word out, and hopefully the community was able to benefit from it.
it's a good idea, to be sure, but publicity perhaps could be better next time.
Sure. I don't know.
Um,
They haven't reached out about doing it again or recurring, maybe, biannual or, yearly or whatever. They haven't reached out about that, so I'll
Right.
keep the group apprised if they do.
Okay, the holiday tree lighting event, report on that. I would say it's one of the best events like that we've ever had, that I've ever been to. It was very family oriented, very community oriented. There was less rowdy people running amok. And it was very low key. And the tree was incredible. I just couldn't believe it. Like, the tree look, and I know, Daryl, there was a hole, and Reagan was involved. Lots of helping hands on guiding whatever. I understand they took all the old lights out from the tree.
Yeah, I got part of them down, and
Yeah,
I couldn't get the ones way up high, but one of the guys that decorated the tree actually climbed up and got everything off. So a big kudos to those guys.
Yeah.
Looks great. There was quite a few in there. An amazing pile of lights that were in that tree.
really.
Yeah, a lot more than I thought.
They gave me a little bit of heartburn just not coming until the Friday morning that we're having the event. It's a little more stress than I would have preferred, and I'm sure the rest of the group agrees with that. But I'm glad that the lights look fantastic on the tree, and it was all ready in time. I do want to give a huge shout out to Kevin Hutto for all of the effort that he puts in to make this event happen. I know he works with a couple of folks to pull it off, but just yeoman's work that he puts in to make this event happen for the town. And I know so many people appreciate it so much. I believe there's still a repair to be done to the outlet by the tree, but he's tracking that for us and getting it done for us. So.
Yeah, I second that. Kevin did a fantastic job, and it really, I mean, the event really came off well. The weather was nice. It was chilly, but not freezing cold, and was clear. It was really, really a great event. And hand in glove with that, the next day, one of the events was the Holiday Arts and Crafts Festivals, and another kudos to Chuck Rusnick. We asked Chuck, we came up with the idea for it. We asked Chuck to take it on, and I didn't know what to expect. I think he didn't know what to expect. He got the word out. I don't know who went there. I know we did, and bought hundreds of dollars worth of stuff, including from Amanda. But it was, I mean, it was fantastic. There were like, I don't know how many vendors there were, 20 or 30 or something. The place was packed. It was a fantastic event. Amanda, I don't know if you want to say a couple words because you were actually there.
Well, I had a great time getting to know the other vendors, and they were all really happy. And the one thing that I heard just from every single person that was there as a vendor is that the entry fee is so generously cheap, $25 to enter. And just to give you some comparison to some of the other arts and crafts events that are in the area at the same time for the holidays, some of the bigger ones, they told me about Woodson and Fairfax High School. The entry fee for those events is like $150. So to be able to come to the town of Clifton and just spend $25 to be able to have a booth made a big difference for all the artists and the crafters who were there to sell their wares. So they were really happy about that.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a chance to get down there, but I understand it's all independent creators. It's not a commercial type show. So I think just from what I've heard, folks that go to these shows, they much prefer that kind of a show. Folks that are into arts and crafts, they want to see individual creators and not, screen printers or, I don't know. There's like a lot of commercial groups out there that go to these shows, a lot of the bigger shows, and wind up driving costs up for stuff like that. So I think if we can keep this a yearly thing and keep it focused on independent creators, I think that would be phenomenal. I'd love to see it continue and grow.
Okay. All right. So that's the report on that. It was really a great event, and Chuck, put it together with us providing the space and the initiative and everything else. It really came off well, and I agree. We'd like to make it an annual event, and part of this weekend with the holiday tree lighting. They canceled the horse parade. There were issues with parking, unfortunately, but the Arts and Crafts Festival, the next day, the live nativity, and then on the day of the Arts and Crafts Festival, the Holiday Homes Tour.
Yeah.
See if we can get some input on that. Was a roaring success. I know all of us were there and being docents or whatever, but it seemed to be an incredibly successful event. I don't know if we have any feedback on it.
Yes, I'm happy to give an update. I was in touch with Dara Curran, who was really the champion of this event, leading this on her own. She mentioned that she's still collecting receipts from the different businesses around town. She'll be getting the final ticket sales from Bell Jar on Thursday, so we'll know the actual sales at that point. But I think just some takeaways that she already knows right now are that sales were lower than our pre-pandemic years during the Homes Tour, but certainly we are well beyond break even, with plenty of funds to also go to the charities. Part of the Homes Tour is that each individual home that's on the tour selects a different charity. So there's funding to go to the charities, and also some coming to the town after all of that.
What did I do with my phone? Oh, I know what I.
Steve, you're not muted.
Stand right here, dear.
So I think some of the successes of the actual tour, first there were four homes that were on the tour. They were all, in my opinion, all the homes just looked fabulous, and a real fantastic insight into our historic community. And then we opened the caboose on the tour, as we've done in the past. So that was exciting. My husband and I were able to be hosts on the caboose, so we got a crash course in caboose history and 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 even all sorts of different people came through and continued our education on caboose history, and even showed us some things in the caboose that we hadn't noticed. That was all really interesting and special to actually have that caboose as a part of the town. And it looks fabulous inside. If anyone ever wants to go in there and take a look at it, it's just a real treat. There are so many different unique features that we can show off during the tour. And then, of course, two of the churches, the Presbyterian Church and also the Primitive Baptist Church, were open with music in both of them. I didn't make it inside either of them, but I certainly heard the beautiful voices coming from the Primitive Church on my different times passing by. And then I think another huge success of the tour was that there was a lot of excitement around it, and a lot of other people were committing to being on the tour in the coming years. So I think that is a good sign that there's some sustainability, and our commitment during the last meeting to move forward, understanding that it might not be the biggest year of the Homes tour, that was really an important step in just getting this back off the ground.
So a rebuilding year, to make a sports metaphor.
I think that's right, and a fabulous rebuilding year at that.
Yeah, for sure.
One issue that came up during the tour that I'd like the council to weigh in on is it was discovered that in the caboose, in one of the closets, there are some street signs, Clifton street signs. They're back to back, right? One side. There's Clifton Road, Pendleton Avenue, and one other one. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, it's Newman, right?
Newman, yeah, which is kind of an odd one, actually. Well, I'll tell you why. I was told by people that there used to be more, but people have dispositioned them, shall we say. And so I was asked by a number of people, can we just take those, or can we give you a couple bucks? And my answer was no. Let us see what they are first, and then decide what to do with them. And until such time, they should remain there. Pendleton, my recollection was, for some reason, the street sign kept
some unknown reason
over, being knocked over, whatever. So I think there's actually a need for a sign there. So the question for the council is, the Newman Road, Clifton Road, Pendleton Road, should we sell those to interested folks? Should we keep them?
No, I would recommend that we either see if VDOT has a need for them to put them back up, or we put them down in the barn or something like that, where everybody can enjoy them.
Display them.
Yeah, it's kind of like tacking an old license plate in your garage. It would be kind of cool to have those in the barn.
Yeah, if
I would not advocate selling them to any individuals at all.
Okay, so keep them. First of all, see if VDOT needs them. Like Pendleton, I don't think there's a sign there.
There is. It's obscured by vegetation, but there is one.
On Chapel Road in Pendleton, there is a sign there.
Chapel and Pendleton, I'm not sure. There is at school in Pendleton.
School in Pendleton, there is
Yeah,
one, but it is often knocked over.
Check. That might be the one that's got knocked down.
I
I've picked up some of those. I put some of those in the caboose, and some were there before my time.
Okay. All right. So we'll hold on to them. They will not be sold off. We'll check with VDOT, and we'll hold them and potentially display them somewhere. Newman's a bit of an oddball. Pendleton is Pendleton, but Clifton Road, I mean, that's very, very, very cool. So
yes.
All right. So I told everybody, time out, hold off, wait, let us see. We'll talk to the council. Okay. Okay. One other note: there was a gospel singing group in the Primitive Baptist Church. It was a group of, I think, students who come up from UVA or something, driven up. And they did a fantastic job. I believe Chuck or the Art Guild paid for them. I mean, it was not inexpensive either, but just letting people know that was there and that was paid for not by the town, but rather by the people associated. You know, the Primitive Baptist is run by a group of trustees that includes mostly residents in the town. Okay, so that takes care of all those, you know, reviews. That only leaves the floodplain invasive species, which I can do last, and then the streetscape. Okay. So back to streetscape. And we got two things on here. Patrick Klein had identified a number of questions that he recalled the council had asked, and he felt those should be answered before we move any further. And also last month we talked about the revision to the site plan that would have to be done by J2, and we would get a proposal for what that would involve. So that's all there, and Gary and Susan were going to address those questions. So with that.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
First of all, I apologize for the waste of time last month on trying to get some sort of funding for our proposal with J2. We thought it would be an easier thing to get a hold of than what we thought. And as a result, we still don't have a proposal. So we've had probably 2 or 3 meetings at least, 2 with VDOT. And really the challenge is defining the scope of work so that J2 can provide an appropriate proposal. So we're still working through that. With any luck, we'll have it for next month's meeting. If by some chance we get it before then, we'll let you know. But we're still working through it. So that's the update on that urgency. Otherwise, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so you're still working on getting the J2 proposal together and hope to have it by next month. When you have it, you'll send it out.
Yes.
Any questions anyone have on that or anything else?
Well, I don't know if we've had time to dig up the questions I raised, Bill, or you want to get into those now?
No, we haven't.
Sure.
So one is a town's question. Do we know how much we've authorized so far?
So the current total funding for the project is approximately $2.7 million. And of that amount, the town's local match commitment is approximately $509,000.
But you know those little pieces of paper we sign and send off to VDOT? How much have we, what's the total amount of those we've sent?
What was that again? Sorry.
Well, every once in a while, we have these slips of paper that I don't know if it's VDOT that requires us to submit. that Bill signs.
Appendices?
What's that?
You say a slip of paper. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what you mean.
Well,
by
it's the form that we fill out authorizing, officially authorizing to spend on this project.
Those
So-
would be, Pat, the resolutions in support.
Yeah.
And we submit a resolution in support every time we submit an application requesting additional funding.
But we do those individually without totaling them. So do we know what the total is on all the ones we've sent?
That's the numbers I just provided.
They add up
Yeah,
to 5.9 million or 5,590,000 is what we said.
The
No,
resolutions always closely track with the amount that we seek when we're applying for funding, because the resolutions are required as part of the application package. So
So there's been a series of applications for funding over the years, and there's been a number of years. Most recently, we've had two applications. One that was awarded earlier this year, and I believe one that was awarded last year, if I remember correctly, Amanda. Correct me if I'm wrong. So including those, the total funding for this project is approximately $2.7 million. So that's the total funding that's been approved through the applications.
And quick question on that, if they've approved presumably up to 2.7 million approximately, and that's reimbursement, would that be the 80% part and we would be the 20% match?
That's correct.
Yes.
And wouldn't then our share be approximately 25% of that? 700,000?
No.
Okay. How do you get to 509, which is about what,
So
15% or something?
So it's a good question. To get into the weeds on that, I'm trying to figure that out myself. So we have the official Appendix A's up through the prior to these last two fundings. And we have the signed documents from VDOT for all that. We don't have it yet for these last two fundings, although they're approved. VDOT has just not processed them through their system because they want to have attached to that dates for the schedule of the project. And because we've kind of had to reboot the schedule, they're trying to make sure we get to a point where we can put dates that we know we can achieve. So when that happens, then we'll get kind of the nitty-gritty paperwork of all these numbers. But these numbers come from VDOT. So in terms of that match, it's 80% and 20% of the project costs. Now there's embedded in there's also some other funding that we received that does not require a local match. So that skews things. So that's partly why it's lower.
Is 2.7 the current project estimate, or is 2.7 the funding from VDOT?
That's the funding from VDOT.
Okay.
So would the total be, if you will, 3.2 million, of which 2.7 is from VDOT and 500 is from us?
No, the total funding, total for the project funding is 2.7 million. Of that 2.7, so there's about 2.2 that is federally funded, whatever the sources are.
Oh.
509 is the town. Together, the total is 2.7.
Okay.
Out of the 2.7 is the 500.
Okay, 2.2 is like the grant money.
Yes.
And 500's from us for
From a
total
couple different
project
sources.
cost. Okay.
So Bill, you've signed those authorizations and they total 509.
I have no idea, but as my recollection is we did those for like two of them, but I don't remember doing them on the early ones. It seems like a more recent thing where they've asked us to do that.
No, I think with all of them, we've had to sign those documents.
Okay.
Yeah. They
I
may have,
couldn't tell you.
over the years, they may have changed a little bit as we've moved ahead, but it's generally how they did the funding.
So the 2.7
question.
Yeah, the 2.7 includes the design contract that we've already incurred of 200 and whatever thousand. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is just the total funding. This is not an accounting of what's been spent to date, et cetera, et cetera. So that's
Yeah, but the 2.7 includes design, right?
absolutely. It's the total
Okay,
cost,
so the
soft costs,
yeah,
hard
so
costs, everything.
yeah. So the cost share of 500 includes the cost share of design, which we've covered off in labor in kind.
That's correct.
So I would say that the town's exposure is already whatever, $40,000 or $50,000 less than the 509.
That's correct.
Right. It's a fair question on these things that the town has said we commit to pay up to X. I don't know what that is. I assume it's out there.
You should have the town should have a full accounting of all of this. It's not the committee's responsibility to keep a track and accounting of this. It's the town's.
The treasurer has it, should have it.
Yeah, the treasurer, all this information has been provided to the town in the past. I think it's safe to say that there's not a very good accounting of that. But it is my goal, and I know it's Amanda's goal to achieve that, because it should happen, and there should be an absolute exact accounting of every one of these dollars. And we haven't spent very much, but this is a large number, and as we get further into this, especially into the construction, there better be a good accounting of this, so we know what's going on. So
yeah, this is not about that.
Very exhaustive records. Pat, if you ever want to meet with me, either in person or online, happy to do so. I have a collection of every resolution in support that the town council has passed in my own folder since I've been employed by the town. I'm sure there are others from before my time. I have a record of every invoice that the town has paid, and I have an invoice of every time the town has submitted our in-kind match. And for the most part, the town has been usually the way it works with the 80-20 split. If the town paid an invoice, say it was like $100, VDOT would give us $80 back. That's the 80%. But if the town can show that we have been contributing additional funding, for example, through volunteer hours or staff that's been paid, then rather than getting reimbursed at 80%, we can get reimbursed at 100%. So a large part of what I have done on this project is to keep track of paid staff hours and also volunteer hours, which has been truly significant, to the point where I think I have submitted for reimbursement to VDOT approximately 13 invoices since 2015 or 2016 when I started working on the project. And for the most part, we have been reimbursed at 100% for every single one of those invoices, with the exception that periodically, and this is the part that I don't have good accounting reporting on, VDOT charges oversight fees. So I'm hoping, and unfortunately Nick's not here tonight, but I would like to know how that is accounted for and what is the percentage that VDOT charges to oversee the project. And they charge all projects a certain amount to oversee it.
Yeah, because I think we all need to understand what we've officially signed up for expenditures, what we think we've already paid. In other words, what portion of the 500 have we already taken out of our bank account?
And that is imminently discoverable. Obviously, I have my own set of numbers on that, and the plan is that the committee is going to meet with Nick after the holidays to reconcile these numbers. I've been through many reconciliation processes with Pam Liston over at VDOT about that, and they quibble down to the penny. So I know that my numbers match VDOT's. I
Yeah,
hope that,
Oh, good, sorry.
It just, my apologies to Amanda. When I say there's not an accounting, Amanda has everything, but she's not the treasurer for the town. The treasurer for the town should
Yeah.
have the accounting. I know Amanda has done an unbelievable job
Right.
of keeping track of this, and there's numbers flying around everywhere, and it's a lot.
it's difficult. It can be quite bewildering.
Yes.
I think even for a financial person, which I'm not, but I can definitely track things, and I can maintain file collections, and I can keep track of what we're submitting. I can't keep track of what we receive from VDOT. That needs to come from the treasurer.
Yeah, 'cause
Um,
at the end of the day, we just need to know how many more checks do we need to write for what we've committed to.
So
So I think
in the future, there will be many more payments,
Yes.
many more submissions. So as Jerry and I were talking about today, we really need to meet with the treasurer, and we need to discuss, and we really need to flesh out how we track the expenditures.
To be clear, what has come out of the town's bank account is about as close to zero as it can possibly be.
Yes,
So, in terms
quite.
of writing checks, there have been almost zero checks written.
Well,
that
the checks
not
have been
been
written,
reimbursed. Yeah,
but they've been reimbursed at
Well,
almost 100% every
Yeah, but-
single time.
Where
Just to
where
be
it's
clear.
important is, so out of the 509, are we still writing a future 509 or 509 less what we have credit for in the system?
So to be clear, the numbers I provided do not account for anything that's been expended. That's the total.
Those are all in numbers for the project.
That is correct. This is not an accounting of what's been expended or not been expended. This is total for the project.
So really, it's finding out what we've got credit for against the 509 to understand that if we wrote checks for everything else, didn't get credits or offsets, that's coming out of the bank's account or the town's account at some point, right?
That's correct.
I think
But
we
we
just
can-
need to understand that because
Yeah.
I'm confused. I don't know where we stand with this, but
We can generate, so basically, Pat, what you would like to know is what has been the town's expenditure out of pocket up until now? Right?
well, no, and applied against the 509. So yes, it's a two-part question.
Yeah, I would say not that
Oh,
the town's expended, but what's the value of the design contract? And any additional stuff that we've done, like site investigations and right-of-way consultations. Because there's we have a $200,000 plus contract with J2. We haven't expended all of it. We've expended probably 80 or 90% of it is my guess. And we've offset that with payments in kinds for the 20% match, but we're significant ways down the road on design, which I think
Well-
that's what you're interested in, Pat, as well, right?
Yeah, because that design contract's in the 2.7 million, right? It's
That's
part of
Yes.
that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
It's really what is the town's exposure going forward against the 509? So that we as a council can decide what portion of our bank account we want to put against this project. It sounds like we've already committed to 509 as a minimum, besides what we got credit for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. But the other side of the coin is, I think, and Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, that if and when some of these utility owners come forward to move some of their stuff at their cost, I think the question was still out there whether we can count that as an in-kind match. And if it is in fact true, then it's a significant windfall to the town.
That's
But I
true.
don't
My
know that
understanding
that's a
is
foregone conclusion.
that we can count if a utility agrees at their own expense to underground the utility, or even at part of their expense, we can count that as an in-kind donation.
Yeah, I'm not sure 100% on that, Amanda. I do want to find that out. I know there's provisions in the documents from VDOT that certainly any easement donation, right-of-way donations from property owners, that can be Any services from professionals, if those were donated, that can be. I don't know about the utilities, but that's something on my list to understand and actually use that as a way to negotiate with utility companies. So
If and when the town grants a right of way to itself for the project, can the town write that off as well?
absolutely, and we certainly
Wins.
hope the town council will be considerate and donate
Well,
that.
I don't know. We're gonna have to get to the table and talk it
I
through.
think that's self-serving, so hopefully that's a good thing. But the process there is, it would still get assessed so that there's a fair value.
Right, is that we can't set our own value. Right?
Correct. But that's actually a good thing, because I think, we probably would undershoot it. So that will be like all other properties. All those will be assessed, and there'll be a value presented, and we would present that to you, and then
Presumably, even if we had to lay out cash to acquire right of ways, that cash that we spend goes towards the 20%, right?
It is part
It's an
of
expenditure, right? It's an
Yes.
expenditure for the project.
It's part of the project costs.
Yeah.
So
But my
it-
point is, it would count towards our 20% we have to kick in.
I don't know. I think it's part of the overall project cost. So you're really only going to be spending 20% of that.
We're only spend 20% of it. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What does the 2.7 include the utility relocation undergrounding cost?
Yes.
If it had to be paid,
Yes.
all of it.
Yes.
Is there I know that Amanda, you mentioned that you want to get together with Nick and Jerry and Susan. Is that meeting scheduled or?
Well, we were thinking about January.
Okay. To get through the holidays and.
Exactly.
It's a nice cold winter, couple of days.
Yeah.
Crunchy numbers.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
We haven't gotten Nick completely oriented on the project, but he's a quick study.
Yeah.
I think that going forward, knowing that there's going to be a lot more invoices and a lot more expenditures coming up, we want to make sure that he's aware of exactly what all we want him to track.
Yeah, because I think we got to take the 509 or whatever the balance is out of the general fund and put it into a separate category. Because right now we're looking at our bank account and thinking we're rich at 1.2 million or whatever it is. It really isn't. It's something significantly less than that. This
1.2 minus whatever the balance on the 509 is.
Yeah.
Amanda, our first meeting with Nick, we may want to have at the pub or Bellagio or something.
I'm down with that. 100%.
And Jerry, the 2.7, that's mostly coming from the engineer's estimate from 21.
Yes.
Okay. Well, those of you, and I know
yeah.
you're in this industry too.
That was
prices have gone ballistic in the last couple of years. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in general, that estimate was used for the funding, but I don't have that number in front of me, but I believe that cost estimate is something less than that 2.7. The VDOT graciously suggested to increase our funding with our last ask, and I want to say it was, Amanda, close to doubled what we were asking. To
account for
they kind of saw the writing on the wall and just kind of did that. So which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Right. So to that point, Pat, if I were to send you every single resolution and support that the council has passed for every application cycle that we've been involved in, the numbers aren't necessarily going to match up with the amount that we've been awarded. Because, for example, as Jerry just mentioned, in the last award cycle, VDOT and the Commonwealth Transportation Board awarded us more than we asked for. We were trying to be polite and reasonable and ask for what we thought that we could get. But then they saw the writing on the wall and they knew that we needed more than that in order to get through all of the phases, all the way through construction and to project closeout.
Well, does that mean the 509 is higher?
No. No, the numbers I gave you are accurate, everything that we've been rewarded.
It just means that the numbers that you would see listed in the resolutions or the little pieces of paper that we submit to VDOT, as you put it, aren't necessarily going to add up to the number
To
that we've been
20%
awarded.
or whatever. Yeah, okay.
Right.
But at the end of the day, our commitment will be 20% of the awarded.
Yes.
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the commitment right now is about $509,000. Just that's all you got to think about. Otherwise, it gets very confusing. It's the 509 is a portion of the total funded amount. So it's not 20% of it's. If there's a total project cost, 80% of it is funded through the whatever funding mechanism that's there, and then the other 20% of it is the local match, the town. Just gotta be careful on that, how you say your numbers.
know,
but
it
it's just confusing. Sorry.
Well, but there's a formula. There's a formula. At the end of the day, for what totally gets awarded, there's a formula for the town's portion.
Yeah, kind of. It's basically if it's going to cost $100, we're paying 20,
Right.
and what gets
20%.
funded otherwise is 80.
But if we can show that we have already paid $20 to staff,
Correct.
then we don't have to pay that $20.
There
Right.
are a number of, well, first of all, there's a number of hours from, Jerry and Susan.
I've got a lot that we
needs to
haven't
be
posted.
submitted. I mean, I know my time is over a year's time, and I had some of my staff working on items. So all of that is yet to be, submitted. So,
Right.
I'm not going to comment on what the end of the day is going to look like, but, I think the town will be very happy.
Yeah,
So-
just trying to get what our cash out commitment would
Yeah,
be.
but to be fair, right now, you should be thinking $509,000 at this moment. Less the whatever, but yes.
Yeah.
That's the worst case scenario.
As we get into budget season in the spring, it's gonna be important that we understand these numbers, to Pat's point. So,
Well, hopefully we'll not only have everything integrated into the town's accounting, but hopefully we'll have a better idea where we are. Certainly by that time, I'm hoping utilities are close to
Yeah.
starting construction, quite frankly, but it depends on how quickly we can get our proposal. It's been a month doing nothing, so that's our critical path at the moment.
all right.
Do we know what happens, say when this project goes out to bid and the numbers come in a lot higher? How does VDOT going to treat that? We automatically are committed to 20% of the overrun? Is that generally how they would treat that?
If there's like a worst case, let's say if nothing else changed, and let's say the total project cost was 3 million, the town would be on the hook for the balance.
Okay.
Now
The entire balance or 20% of the balance?
100% of the balance. Now, obviously, if we reach that point, we could request additional funding,
Yeah.
there's different avenues to deal with that. But anyway, there's a lot in play at this
Right.
point, a lot.
In previous application cycles, the town has successfully been awarded additional funding, with part of the reason why we were asking for the additional funding was because the cost went up.
Mhm.
So
Mainly the utilities.
it is possible that we could get additional funding at that
Yes.
point.
The VDOT is extremely committed to seeing this through and
Yes,
wants
they are.
this project to succeed. I mean, they are all over this, partly because their supervisors are all over them. And that's coming from a high level, it's all the way, it's at a high level that they understand. We've been out there for a while, all these things, and but we've also, recently got more funding. So it's we are looked at very favorably in the big picture, and I've got, high confidence that all this is gonna go through and we will one day tear up our roads, hopefully.
One day. It'll only take one day.
Yeah,
All right. I got you on the record. All
There
right.
you go.
So for the other little small things, did we get rid of that maintenance of non-standard items thing?
We have not. Obviously that is on the site plan. We have not revised the site plan. Obviously that costs money to do that. We're not at that point, but at this point, it's not a priority. We're discussing with VDOT exactly what that means. And maybe there are other avenues to manage that if we did decide to move forward with the materials that are currently designed. There's a whole host of possibilities that maybe, we can deal with that in terms of the maintenance. I believe what I'm getting is, and I don't know this for sure, but we're trying to get this verified. It was actually something that we discussed today, that VDOT will maintain everything. What does that mean? Obviously, at some point down the road, if a pavement had to be, resurfaced or what have you, that they would do it, but they wouldn't necessarily do it in kind. And so obviously that's where, okay, then, where's that money come from? But we need to do some research before we're just going to pull the plug. So like I said, there's a lot of possibilities on what potentially could happen there.
And then do we ever find out if the town has to put up bonds for this?
So there will be, yes, obviously there'll be some sort of bonding. Now, whether that's done by the contractor, most likely it's through the contractor, not the town itself. Obviously, at the end of the day, the project pays for this, but it's the actual bonding, I believe, would be done through the contractor, and we're verifying that as well.
Yeah, it's not typical VDOT that the contractors do it, but maybe they're gonna have a pretty hefty fee for that, but maybe some we can work into the construction contract.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, again, that's the construction phase for the roadway improvements versus the utilities, which would be done, by each utility company. So.
Does VDOT actually manage the construction, or is that something we have to do?
No, well, no, there's no simple answer. Sorry. So not really, but they potentially can offer some things, but we're in discussions on a couple different things. One is the utility construction. And I can't remember if we mentioned this last time, but we had a utility consultant on board when we started the entire concept of relocating the utilities. And so they kind of helped us get started. And then we kind of didn't need their services. They had some limited scope of services at the time. It was really trying to provide feasibility and estimates. Since then, we've been doing it on our own. But we've reached a point that both in doing a final coordination of utilities and construction of utilities, we probably need to bring a utility consultant on board. So we reached back out to the previous consultant, and they pretty much said we're too busy, to put it politely. Then we reached out to a second consultant who we had reached out to originally, and they prefer not work on the project since they didn't work on it from the beginning. So then we have reached out to a third and received a proposal, had a meeting in town, and we're working through that. But that's kind of when we kind of switched gears and focused on getting J2 back on board so that we can get things submitted back to the VDOT. That's our critical path. So that's still out there. For the construction phase, we have a couple of names to talk with to help manage that as well. And then in general, I want to contact one of our Clifton residents to possibly bring on the committee to, kind of help oversee all of that, but we should have somebody who can actually do the inspections and things like that and oversee all that. And that we've also reached out to some other folks just as a consulting basis to help give us some advice on, a bunch of these aspects.
Is that all in this $2.7 million budget, or these additional costs?
It would all need to be in that 2.7 million, yes.
Well, is it in the 2.7?
So the 2.7 isn't necessarily a budget. Like I said, the budget we currently have is it's some amount lower. So technically, yes, it would be in that. But again, as you said, where our costs, where will our costs be when we actually get to that point? We don't know. So
okay. Okay. Yeah, I think like most people just want to make sure that we don't get up to the starting point and find out we're way over budget and we can't afford it. I know that's your goal too, but it's a little intimidating with all the pieces that aren't tied down yet.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, anything else at this time?
Unless somebody else on the council has questions.
I look forward to hearing more next month.
Thanks to you both for coming in and answering all these questions and for all the work you're putting in on this. Really appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely. And if there's some miracle, well, time is going to be bad no matter what, even if we got the proposal like on December 24th or something. So it's anyway.
Yeah,
it's probably next meeting.
Yep.
I won't put any panic into it this time. So
well, we'll see what happens and we can react to it.
Yeah. Well, when we get it, we get it.
Okay, the last thing on the agenda is an update on the floodplain park invasive plants.
Everybody have a great holiday.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas.
About
Yep.
that.
Thanks.
Good night. Thanks.
It's just an update. There's no action. I just want to make sure everybody is aware of where we're heading at the moment. And that is, we've been looking at this for like 2 years or longer. And it looks to me like, after looking at it with, I don't know how many different people who put in proposals and everything else. Most recently, I talked to Tom Stokes about it, that what you've got over there is a bunch of trees. Many are lovely and some are dead. But the environmental people tell you that dead trees are a great thing to have. So you wouldn't cut dead trees down unless they're right on the trail where someone might walk and the tree would fall on them. Okay, so when we talk about tree removal, just talking about that, trees that are a safety hazard, trees that are covered in vines, where the vines might kill a tree that otherwise could thrive. Okay, look at taking off some vines. And then you've got all this understory that happens to be this multiflora rose for the most part. The problem is, you can certainly take it all out. You could clear cut the whole lot, which would obviously be a disaster, because if you go in there now, there are birds everywhere. They're flying in and out of these shrubs and stuff. It's great. And there's birds and there's, I don't know, otter and mink and creatures and all kinds of stuff. So the idea that you would go in with something and remove all of these shrubs because they're invasive and they're horrible and whatever, it's not realistic. What appears to me to be a realistic approach is to take some area that's not where the vernal pools are, where the salamanders, whatever, on the south side of the trail. Take some area and clear it out. And then see what happens, see what grows up. But clear some area out by mechanical means. take out some trees that might fall on someone and are a safety hazard, and cut some vines. But it would be by design, by definition, by plan, only a small part, because you'd really need that to eventually grow up before you start taking out all the understory in the whole park. And we'll be getting a proposal on that. And I think the proposal will talk about all the various phases. But the idea that this would all be cleared out and it'll look like this beautiful, you know, meadowy thing in a few months, can't do it. As many people as I've talked to, I think that's where we'll end up. It'll be done over many years. Could be 4, 5, 6 years, because in my mind, there's a nice trail there now. You can walk around. It's lovely. There are lots of creatures. The worst thing we could do would be to destroy the ecosystem, so all the animals had to evacuate. That's the worst thing that we really want to avoid. And that's worse than having some invasive shrubs. So it'll be taking out some part of those shrubs. And I hope to come in with a proposal, hopefully at the next meeting, because the winter time, I think, would be a good time to take that out, but it would just be a part of it. Okay, so that's just an update after all the planning. And by the way, as many cooks as there are on this project, I think the only cook that will come in with US currency will be the town. So I think ultimately we'll be the ones funding it. And if we're funding it, we'll be deciding what to do. Make sure it's kosher with everybody. Mark Khosravi, Laura McDonald, everybody will sign off and say this is okay. But at the end of the day, it'll be a town initiative. It'll be reasonably small in scope, so we can't really do any terrible harm, and we'll see where it goes. Okay, so that's just an update. I don't know if anybody has any questions or thoughts on that. No decisions tonight, just updating.
I would like to just thank the council for thinking about this issue and caring and taking the time to be deliberate and to explore best practices. It's disheartening to just drive around the area. I'm saying beyond Clifton, and just see all the many trees that have been so overtaken by English ivy and all the other strangling vines, and just the profusion of autumn olive bushes. And I just really appreciate that the town council cares and is taking steps to take care of it over time. It's a long battle.
Starts with one step.
Yeah, and it'll be about maintaining. It'll be about maintaining it. We're not going to make an English garden, and we don't even want to. The idea that it's a wild nature park, and there's one really big dead tree there, and if you look up in the top, you can see bees flying in and out, and you can actually, it appears you can see like honeycombs inside. It's really cool. So I'm learning to love dead trees by talking to all these tree environmental people. So yeah, we're putting a lot of work into this to do it right, and it won't be done quickly, but you know, we are working on a plan, and I hope to have it by next month to do that first phase. The beauty of it is, for like Patrick, it's not going to be a huge cash payment because we'll be doing it over so many years. So to some extent that works.
And we can pull back if we need to, by doing it in phases. You're not overcommitting.
And you do have a lot of dedicated volunteers willing to pitch in.
While we're on the subject of trees, I would like to request that we add to next month's agenda the topic of replacing the beautifully lit tree that we have in Air Square before next Christmas.
Okay, I'll give you a quick update on that. I've talked to many people on this topic, and one important point is I've been told repeatedly by people who do this for a living that fall is the time to plant.
Sure.
October. Okay. So we can decide whatever we want now or next month or whatever, but it's not happening till then.
Yeah, of course.
And we would have to take the current tree down. We'd have to dig the roots out pull up the wire and then put a tree in, and everybody needs to prepare for this. Remember your native tree resolution? You're gonna have to throw that out the door on this.
Really?
There's no such thing. The kind of tree the town's looking for would be a couple that I've had proposed are a blue spruce or a Syrian spruce. The Syrian spruce is not from Virginia. This may surprise. I think it may be from Syria. They will not be native trees. You want a native tree, put a juniper bush in, or a holly tree. There's no such thing. Okay. So if we're looking at a tree that would be some sort of conical fir that would actually live here, it will not be a native tree. So the council will have to cross, that bridge and say, I know we have the native thing, but this is different.
Granting an exception. Yeah. Okay.
And somebody said, the tree there now is a spruce tree, I think, of sorts, and it's there. So replacing it with another spruce is sort of native-ish. I don't know. Okay.
Well, maybe we can make that ship sail.
Yeah, we're going to have to do that, which is I've looked at native trees and no. And when you talk to tree people, they go, no. You can't do that.
I was given the contact information of the guy who put in the Christmas tree for the town of Manassas, the city of Manassas. They put in sort of a living Christmas tree or holiday tree. So I was going to reach out to that person and get some insight and potentially a proposal to bring for us to consider. So
that would be perfect. There are people, as far as cutting it down, Tom Stokes can cut it down. That's no big deal.
But getting the root ball out and everything else, right?
Correct. That's correct. Yep. Yeah. That's all doable. There are people who plant trees, but then you have to get a tree. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, what kind of tree? And so we got two bids: blue spruce, Syrian spruce, blue spruce, Syrian spruce. It has to grow here. It doesn't do us any good to buy a tree that won't grow.
It won't survive in the climate. Yeah.
Exactly. And we're looking at a tree maybe 10 feet tall, maybe 10, 12 feet. That's it. A bigger tree. Apparently trees have become, like everything else, very hard to come by and not inexpensive. So that would be the plan, and we can get a plan together. The implementation would be maybe summertime, we're pulling the tree down and in the fall planting the new one. It was pointed out to me that when you remove this tree, you will see all the cars in the parking lot, and you'll see a little tree basically. So just everybody's got to think about it, because I guarantee you, when it's done, I will be, and you may be, fielding endless complaints from disgruntled people who are very upset that we removed the tree. Yeah. And they don't like what we put in. So don't doubt that that's going to happen. There will be significant backlash. And I want to make sure we really have thought about it, and we really want to do it, and we've really thought it through before we do it. Okay,
yeah. So well, that's why I'd like it to be an item on the agenda starting next month, and that way it's,
Yep.
Part of our ongoing conversation.
See if you can get that Manassas stuff. And what isn't helpful is people say, oh, we should take the old tree down, put a new one up. Yeah, okay, I get that.
I brought that to you.
What kind of tree?
Yep.
How tall? Mm-hmm. Be specific. Okay, because we need a specific plan. And then we're going to need to tell all the naysayers that we talked about it for years. We thought about it. We have a plan. This is the plan. And then, Daryl, I like your idea of getting it on the agenda. Amanda, please remind me for next month. We'll talk about it for several months.
Yes.
So that anybody who's upset about it will have an opportunity to come in and air their grievances before we decide. Okay?
Absolutely.
So, because Air Square is fundamental to this town. Mm-hmm. And as is that tree. I mean, it's front and center. So we need to be careful and be very thoughtful. about what we
Yeah.
do. That's the last thing on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Okay.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, that's it.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Phyllis. I can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
There. Okay. Okay. Do we do anything to stop